Crawford versus Canelo. Guys, here's what happened. So you get out to Allegiant Stadium. There's 80,000 people. Now, I don't say this to be gross and to brag. I got to go to WrestleMania, though. As a matter of fact, I was 4 rows behind Terence Crawford. And I just say it because I've seen that atmosphere, and it's different. For the professional wrestlers that got to do it, I mean, this was a dream come true. This was a life's work, but it's a very different energy. The professional wrestlers that got to do it, the crowd is helpful. The crowd is amazing. They're cheering for them, or they're booing, they're reacting, and then there is a skit that is put on. Right? Like if you're a concert or a band or a comedian, somebody that might play, you're an entertainer, Garth Brooks, and you play Allegiant Stadium in front of 80,000 people, it's very different than being a dirty, grimy fighter that had a dream. And not only did you achieve it, you achieved it by a factor of 8. You understand that fighters will dream of fighting for world championships. They'll dream of fighting on television. They'll dream of fighting in a main event. They'll dream of fighting in front of a sold-out arena. A sold-out arena is 10 to 12,000 people. That is the dream. Nobody dreamed about fighting at a stadium. Not Canelo, not Crawford, not anyone else on that card, not any boxer ever has even had that dream. So they reached their goal and then times that by 8. Could you imagine? And could you imagine this environment? And it's very relevant. It's one of the top things that you have to ask yourself if you're trying to break down a fight. Who's going to be able to compete when the lights are this bright? And it doesn't matter how many fights you have. No human being has ever had a fight like that. I mean, do you understand? Okay. So the narrative for this fight, and you've got to understand, fighting as a whole is very lazy. And I don't mean the fight. I mean the industry. The analysis and the pundits, and no matter who you go get or how long they've done it, they're very lazy. Keep them at the end of your punches. Make sure there's punches and bunches. Get in and get out. Control the range. Footwork. Make one fight analyst who's ever been on TV and given a paycheck tell you what footwork means. Well, he's got this great footwork. All right, tell me what it means. It means how his feet move. Everybody, including the referee, is doing footwork. But oh boy, you can get people to come out and they're an expert in boxing because they can tell you about this guy's great footwork. I mean, I'm just sharing with you. It's extremely lazy all the way down to the biggest narrative of this entire fight, which is the weight class. Now, they get on the scale 24 hours before and they weigh the exact same thing, but one guy is bigger. No, he's not. As a matter of fact, that's impossible. And we know for sure. Now, if you just look at 2 guys, if it's the playground, if it's the street, I mean, you can come to all sorts of different opinions. In this one, we can't. We put them on a scale. They weighed the exact same thing, but it didn't change the narrative that Canelo is bigger and he's too big. He's too big because not only is Crawford going into his weight class, not only is he going up to go into his weight class, he's going up 2 weight classes. What they don't tell you is those weight classes are separated by 3.5 pounds. The entire argument is over 7 pounds. On his biggest, fattest day versus his little, skinniest day, it's 7 pounds. Now, if you are the kind of person who gets scared in a competition and of any kind, whether it's basketball or football or what have you, there are different size bodies out there, and if 7 pounds intimidates you, I'm not going to be able to break through that. But the narrative, the absolutely day-old, lazy narrative that Canelo was too big still existed. And the reason that I tell you that it's lazy is it is a theory. And it's a theory that the average everyday guy deals with. And it all comes from the same basis, which was not an athletic competition, not ever putting somebody on a scale, not ever actually knowing. Somebody's kid got his ass kicked at school. And when that guy had to get to work the next day and explain to his buddies why this happened, he blamed it on the other kid being bigger. And his buddies all accepted it because their sons suck at fighting too. So the day that their son gets beat up, they want to be able to come in and tell the same story and have the same accepted excuse. And the reason I tell you that and the reason I get worked up about it is factually and historically, you cannot give me a list of guys who won fights because they were bigger. You're going to be stuck at the fact that Muhammad Ali, while competing at a heavyweight, won the first world title at 198 pounds. He wasn't even over 200 pounds. You get stuck because Mike Tyson never once weighed more than an opponent with an exception of Jake Paul. Are you aware of these things? In the UFC, we've seen champ, but we have never seen a heavier guy go down to become champ. We've only seen the smaller guy go up. And it's not that we haven't seen heavier guys come down and try. It's not that we haven't seen champions at an above weight class come down and try. They've never succeeded. And I share that with you because time and time again, we find ourselves in the exact same situation and there's an opportunity to make money because people, including the experts and the pundits, refuse to accept reality. They just do. So you get Crawford and you get Canelo. Now, your analysis that Canelo is bigger is accurate. Your belief that that will be helpful is inaccurate. I maintain for you, there is not a feeling out process in boxing. I would offer to you as proof amateur boxing. There is no feeling out process, but they're going 3 rounds, which is a realistic amount of time for the human body to do. 12 rounds is absurd. There is nobody, regardless of the shape, blood doping, and EPO, that can go hard for 12 3-minute rounds. So as boxers, unspoken, you come out and you do nothing for 5 or 6 rounds. I can't go 12 and you can't go 12. So let's burn 6. We both realistically could do about 6. We're pros and we've been at this 20 years and that's how long it would take to be able to do that sport, which is the most difficult sport in the world, for 18 hard minutes, even if you're given a rest in between rounds. I'm just sharing that for you. That's what I maintain. People that want to talk about they want to fix and they want to help boxing. Okay, great. Then make the whole contest 8 rounds. We've done this many times. We just haven't revisited it in 40 years. Are you guys aware that you could go 100 rounds in boxing? Are you aware of that at the turn of the 18th century? Now, every time there was a knockdown, it started a new round. It wasn't you do 100 rounds at 3 minutes apiece. But you could go 100 rounds legally by the rules. So then somebody grabs a hold and says, hey, this is ridiculous. Let's get them in there for 15 rounds. And then some adults come in the room and go, that's stupid. To let 2 men that are allowed nothing else than to bludgeon one another for 45 minutes as the world watches is unsafe. And they bring it down to 12 rounds. And then you got some good, honorable promoters that came in and said, hey, we're going to stop it at 10. We have the right to go 12. We're going to stop it at 10. And somewhere along the way, it moved back to 12. But I'm only offering this for you is me telling you, make it 8 rounds. Doesn't just make it more pleasing and more realistic. It would do both of those things. It just makes the entire thing, and it shows that you have an adult in the room. Right? Commissions will hang their hat on fighter safety. Now, there's no truth to it. They are there for commerce, first and foremost. They pretend that they're there for fighter safety. If you were the commissioner that actually made it 8 rounds or even argued and put the piece of legislation forward, you would go down as somebody that actually cared about the fighters. I'm just sharing for you. It is that ridiculous to put somebody in there for 12 rounds. And that is why it sucks to watch. Nobody can do it, but neither can their opponent. So the announcers and commentators create a lie known as a feeling out process. It doesn't actually exist. You don't see it in MMA, you don't see it in the amateurs, you don't see it in the gym, and you don't see it in sparring. Why do these guys not need to feel out their sparring partners? Because they don't have to fight that sparring partner for 12. Right? I'm just telling you why. So when you have Crawford go out there, Canelo did exactly what he was supposed to do. He walked him down. He pushed him forward. Now, the great strategy of Canelo would have been to go backwards. The big guy will always pressure the little guy. So Canelo, as the big guy, should have conceded ground. That would have been a tremendous strategy and one that Crawford and his team were not ready for. I just offer you that in hindsight. But the fight was largely Canelo trying to hurt him with one punch, and he has to do that because he's too slow, being the bigger guy, to hit him with multiple punches. He also can't win the conditioning battle because he's the bigger guy. It is a massive disadvantage. Meanwhile, Crawford can touch him repeatedly, punches and bunches, a little bit faster, a little bit better shape, a little less power, not expected to knock him out anyway. It was very obvious going into this fight who was going to win aside from commission corruption, of which in Nevada has got to be considered at all times. And by the way, corruption is very different than incompetence. I'm speaking to incompetence. Of which you saw. Bud Crawford won closer to 10 rounds than he did to 2 rounds. They gave him the fight by 2 rounds. They were prepared to rob him. They tried to rob him. He dominated the fight so much that in spite of the judges' incompetence, they still got the outcome right. But to pretend that he won by 2 rounds, and for that to not warrant a review, I will just share with you, is infuriating. There is no reasonable person that understands boxing that agrees with those judges that Crawford won by 2 rounds. And I understand that he didn't win by 10 rounds. But my statement is quite literal when I tell you it was closer to 10 than it was to 2. And this is the way that it goes every time you put a guy that's a little bit smaller against a guy that's a little bit bigger. But the next time you see a smaller guy and a bigger guy, the lazy pundits will set the story up the same way. And the odds makers will follow. And the guy that actually pays attention to history will go in like he did this weekend and make money.